Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Roar Lions Radio, the Puck Podcast. It's been a while. I'm your host for today's episode, Nick Pollock, joined as always by my co-host Doug Leeson and Jacob. I just combined Doug and Jacob into one name, and Jacob Charis. Jacob, for that slight to your name, we'll start with you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. Classes are getting going. They've gone well so far. It's been pretty well. I'm looking forward to getting back into some Penn State hockey talk with you boys.
Great, good to hear. And Doug, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Right before we started recording this pod, I had an assignment to do where I had to record like a 5-minute introduction video about myself for class. I went back to my camera roll after I did it. It recorded 1 second. So I am in just the best mood. I'm ready to go.
Excellent. That I've been rewatching Veep lately. Have either of you guys watched Veep?
No.
I saw the first episode and it didn't really make me want to watch anymore.
All right. Well, first of all, highly recommend. The first time I watched it, I think we stopped a couple episodes into season 6, and now we're just going the whole way through. I love, like, The Office is my favorite show of all time. There is no show that makes me laugh harder than Veep, just consistent.
Wow.
It is absolutely hysterical. But there's one episode where they have the classic, like, oh yeah, I recorded this, and you find out that they hit the record button and then stopped it when they were making it recorded. So same kind of deal.
Yeah. I just been playing chess. I watched the Queen's Gambit, and I just play chess now. That's all I do.
My wife watched Queen's Gambit. I watched a little bit of it. Seemed interesting. It didn't really grab me enough to stay in the room, but it was interesting enough, I thought. Yeah. Jacob, anything you've been watching lately? Let's just start off.
Cobra Kai. You guys know Cobra Kai?
Kai,
Family Guy with my dad. And kind of rewatching Stranger Things, because I'm bored.
Great.
There's nothing good out of once. I want season 4 of both shows to come out.
Now, Jacob, this is an important question, though, because you are only a sophomore in college. Which Karate Kid did you see first?
I saw the original one first.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I didn't see. I actually haven't seen any of the sequels after, but I do want to watch them at some point because I've been into Cobra Kai, and it was really good.
As long
I've never seen the Karate Kid. Never seen the Karate Kid.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Well, I at least see the original before. Don't watch the one with, was it Jaden Smith? I think is in.
Yeah, don't watch that one.
Really
watch the one with Ralph Macchio and William Zabka. Those guys.
Yeah, you got to watch the original.
Yeah. You know what I did see? I watched Penn State hockey these last couple of weeks.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's get into it. It's been a while since we've been here talking about Penn State hockey. The holiday break and all that stuff kind of makes it difficult to get a real podcast schedule together, but hopefully we'll get back on a regular schedule here going forward. But since the last time we talked, I believe the last podcast we did was right after they swept Arizona State with the pair of overtime wins. And since then, Penn State's been pretty steady. I'm just going to run through really quickly what the schedules looked like since then. Since that sweep of Arizona State, they split a series with Michigan State on the road. They split a series with Ohio State on the road. They swept Michigan State at home, and then they split with Wisconsin and Notre Dame, both at home. Both of those games went to overtime. And then they were going to play Michigan this week. I say this on Friday, February 5th. They were going to play Michigan, but that series was postponed, I believe, due to what it was COVID with
Michigan had a lot of COVID cases.
Yeah, testing cases and irregularities and whatever positives it came up to be with Michigan. So a lot has happened. I think it's a great sign that Penn State over that stretch didn't get swept once. They either split or swept everyone they played, which is awesome. And all of that has left Penn State currently sitting 5th in the conference with 20 points. They're right behind Notre Dame, who's in 4th. With 21. Michigan's just ahead of them with 23 points. Wisconsin has 28, and Minnesota's kind of running away with this thing with 33 points. They're sitting at 11-3 right now. They're very good. And then Ohio State and Michigan State are right behind Penn State, 6th and 7th with 16 and 15 points respectively. In terms of individual play, right now, Alex Limoges and Kevin Wall are leading the team with 16 points apiece. Limoges has 9 goals. Wall has 8. We'll talk about Kevin Wall a little bit. I've been really encouraged to see him get back into the scoring column because I was worried a little bit that he was going to be that guy that kind of scored when everything else was going wrong in the beginning of the season and never got the credit for playing well when the team started picking it up again, but we'll get to him. And then the other thing I wanted to point out was Oscar Audio is pretty clearly taking a stranglehold on the starting job. He now has 14 starts compared to Liam Soulier's 4, and he currently has a 2.84 goals against average, much better than where he was, and an 897 save percentage. So all in all, things for Penn State, they're on the up and up. So I don't know, just Jacob, why don't you start? Just give me some general takeaways from the last, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 games since we last talked.
Yeah, so I want to start with really the Wisconsin series because it was a huge shock that they came out with the split because Wisconsin is really, really good. They got Cole Caulfield, who is the most, in my opinion, the most electrifying player in all of college hockey. He is that good and is going to become a really good NHL player. And they split with them. They beat Wisconsin 5-4 in the second game. Then they get to Notre Dame and a huge loss for this team. Arnie Talvidia goes down. He's injured. That's a huge loss because he's been playing really, really well. The thing that's separating this team right now from where they were at the start of the season is that they're getting to the dirty areas of the ice. They're getting to the front of the net. They're still putting shots on net. They're getting those greasy goals because, Nick, you talked about Wall. He had a weird goal from behind the goal line. They just threw it on net, and it went off of Cameron Rowe, the Wisconsin goaltender, and in. Those are the goals you need to score at this down the stretch because this is when teams start to get hot. Penn State was supposed to play Michigan. Michigan is coming off of back-to-back sweeps. At the right time, they always get hot. So those are my biggest takeaways so far.
Doug, how about you?
My biggest takeaways have kind of been I'm kind of trying to get a grasp on the narrative of what this team has been and what this team's going to be this season. And I think on our first couple podcasts this season, which were all, in the first half of the year, and it's been a while since then, we're talking about how this is a very young team. And though they were losing a lot of games at the start of the season, they still had shown signs that they would be able to compete later in the year. And that is true. And that's been the case. But what's been interesting is that the reasons I think are not because of the ones that or at least I remember I predicted. It hasn't been the freshmen who have really gotten, in many cases, it's not really the freshmen who have gotten better over the course of the season that have been carrying the team to the wins in the last couple of games. It's been Alex Limoges and it's been Tim Doherty and it's been some of the veterans, Talvidia, like you mentioned, and Kevin Wall, of course, the sophomore, right, who is on a tear this year. Yeah. It's been those guys who have been getting these wins in the last couple of games. So the team has improved, which is nice to see, but I'm surprised for the reasons why. It hasn't been, these freshmen who are able to score in the beginning of the season, they haven't really progressed, at least on the stat sheet. A lot of guys have been very quiet. A lot of guys have been playing, in most or all the games, and they have 1 or 2 goals or 1 or 2 or 3 points in the whole season. What is also interesting to me is the goals allowed column. If you look throughout the Big Ten, Penn State by far leads the way in goals allowed with 56, whereas every team ahead of them has 33, 32, 34, 22 goals against, which is something we kind of knew. This is a very young defensive team for Penn State. The goalie situation is not ideal. But that's a problem that I don't think is going to be solved overnight, and maybe not even be solved by next season. When Minnesota is leading the conference and they've given up almost a third as many goals as Penn State, that's been a major takeaway for me.
Yeah, the Penn State is giving up 3.4 goals against per game. That really can't happen.
Yeah, I would be interested to see that number this isn't necessarily fair, but I would be interested to see that number if you take out that Wisconsin series early on where they lost 6-3 and 7-3. But yeah, that's a great point. And it's in some ways, I think this team is what we kind of predicted they'd be at the beginning of the year. They're just going to have to be a team that outscores teams. They're not going to beat anyone defensively necessarily. But I like, Doug, that you mentioned how we kind of expected a turnaround to coincide with the kind of the rise of the freshmen and just the younger players in general. And yeah, Kevin Wall is a younger guy, and Connor McMenamin and Connor McAkron have been good players as well so far too. But like you said, it's really been fueled by Alex Limoges, Tim Doherty, Arnie Talvidia. And I know especially Alex Limoges, he was really just starting to get it back on track in that Arizona State series last time we talked. And he's been on fire since then. I know he netted his 50th career goal. He was just named a Hobie Baker nominee. He's been absolutely on fire. Jacob, I mean, what have you seen from Alex Limoges that, I mean, because in a lot of ways his game looks the same as it always has, but I will say it seems like in the past, he's oftentimes in the past, especially on the power play, has been the guy feeding the guy waiting down low. And this year he seems to be the guy in position to score those easy goals a lot more, which is interesting.
Yeah, he's always at the front of the net with a stick on the ice, just waiting for those easy layup goals. But I think what's been better about him is his skating. He's moving his feet. He's also moving the puck a lot better. But like I said, the main reason why Limoges is having this many points is, again, like he's getting to the dirty areas, because most of his goals come from in front of the net, off of rebounds, getting those second and third chance opportunities. And he's been, like you said, by far their best player. And they needed him because at the start of the season, it really took time. Like, he wasn't there compared to last season. I barely noticed him on the ice. But I think that was also a chemistry issue where, your guy Godowski is juggling lines because he's having a new team. Penn State is kind of like right now Minnesota last year.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, because in Minnesota last year, they were terrible at the start of the year, and then they tore it up and they almost won the Big Ten. Penn State, I don't think they're not as good as Minnesota's was down the stretch last year. But obviously they are better, and Limoges is the reason for that.
Would you say that Alex Limoges has been the best overall player?
Yeah.
Jacob, I'll start with you.
I don't know. Maybe I would probably say Kevin Wall. I like Kevin Wall skating a lot better. And Kevin Wall has been consistent throughout the entire season because every single series he makes things happen.
Doug, how about you? Who's been the player that's been most impressive overall for you?
Yeah, it's definitely between those two. I think I'll go with Limoges because while Wall may be the better skater, I agree, and I like the points you've been making about Limoges getting to the dirty areas. I think he not only is the leader because of the letter he's wearing on his chest, but he's the leader in the style that he plays. So, I mean, you can make an easy case for either of them, or they can be 1A and 1B, but I'll go with Limoges. I think I like the way he's been playing, and adding on the veteran aspect and the leadership that the team has, entrusted him with. I think he deserves a lot of credit.
Could I interest either one of you in entering Arnie Talvidia's name into this conversation?
Yeah, again, he got hurt, which was disappointing. He's been really good as of late. He has 7 goals, 13 or
it
7
seems
goals, 6
it seems
assists.
to me like he's been the main play driver on the power play too.
Yeah, he's been excellent on the power play, and he's also just throwing shots on net. He had that amazing snipe against Wisconsin that was from the hash marks or something like that. I'll have to check his stats in his last couple of games because they've been really they've been pretty good.
He's also leading the team right now in shot percentage. He's at 175.
Okay, yeah. So and that's good, and that's the style that Guy Godowski likes to play. He had 3 points in game 2 against Wisconsin, 2 goals and 1 assist. But I would like to see him be more consistent in terms of getting points, because if he returns next year, he has to be a point per game player. Because next year, hopefully, we have a full normal college hockey season. And if that's the case, he's got to be the guy to get on the stat sheet every night and really lead this team, because I think the recruiting class next year will be better. And Talvidia will be the guy to lead them. I think he'll be probably the future captain of this team. So I think you make a good case for Arnie, but I don't know, again, because he got hurt, man. We don't know the injury status. So right now it's Limoges and Wall.
I agree with that. I think there's definitely that top tier of Limoges and Wall, and then Talvidier is maybe by himself on the next tier. You can maybe make a case for Tim Doherty or someone else, but I think it's probably Talvidier. But my take on him, and I'd be curious to hear your guys' thoughts as well. But as far as anyone on the roster, Talvidier is either the only, or maybe at least is the best, or has the best pro future. I think he would be the best professional player out of anyone on this roster.
Yes. Yeah, on this roster. If you're talking about overall Penn State talent, I would say Evan Barrett. Evan Barrett is the guy who could go to the NHL. But yeah, I would agree with you there. Talvidier is definitely probably has the best chance at cracking an or maybe an NHL roster in the future. It's gonna be a while.
I do feel like he's the one he's already the most comfortable with playing the style of play that he would need to play in order to succeed in the NHL.
Yes.
Yeah. And he won the gold medal with Finland at the WJC. He was the captain, so he knows how to take on he knows how to play well at the big stage at the
he also has the benefit
pro level.
He also has the benefit of already being drafted by the Devils, right? So he already had kind of name recognition.
The Devils aren't in good shape right now.
The Devils are not in good shape.
Yeah, so there's a lot of guys in college hockey who can score because of just how college hockey is played. Andrew Sturts and Dennis Smirnov are perhaps such players, maybe Limoges even a little bit. Just the way college hockey works, players like that have a huge advantage and can put up a ton of points. But as we've seen with Smirnov and Sturts, they're trying to kind of carve out a pro career for themselves. Whereas guys who, play Talvidier's style, not as flashy in college, but the way they score and the way they play overall, I think maybe projects them to be more successful in professional hockey.
Yeah, I think the other two obvious names there in that conversation are Limoges and Wall. Wall also, obviously, the benefit of being drafted by the Hurricanes. I think the problem with Wall is that he's not going to be fast enough to do what his speed is not enough to do what he does to college teams. I'm not wording this. You know what I'm saying, though. His speed is not enough.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah,
to do to NHL teams what he does.
And he was also a 6th-round pick, and a 6th-round pick, a guy from Penn State. Like, it's like he's not going to get a lot of NHL time, because Penn State isn't that program where it's like the Minnesotas, the Michigans, the Wisconsins, the teams like that produce NHL players.
My initial thought on Limoges too is kind of similar. He's just not quite fast enough. He's not quite big enough. But I think the thing working in Limoges' favor is that he has found success in different ways through his Penn State career. So he does have some versatility. So maybe that is a bit of an advantage for him there in that regard. I still think Talvidier is probably the most well cut out to play in the NHL at some point.
I would say he's your prototypical two-way forward in the NHL.
Yeah. Quick heads up. I'm going to ask you guys a question later on at some point in the show about what is your favorite stat to this point in the year on Penn State's team. So when you're not answering a question, take a second to look over the stat sheet because I didn't prepare you for that. But Jacob, I'm going to go to you for this next question. Who would you say is the most surprising player on the team so far, either good or bad?
Looking at the roster, honestly, probably Tim Doherty. I knew that he was going to be really good because of what he did in Maine. I don't know. He got some player of the year award or something like that.
And he led the team in points there too, didn't he?
Right. Yeah. So, and obviously the Big Ten hockey is different from Hockey East, and the teams, I don't know, aren't as good. It's not Atlantic. It's not like Atlantic hockey where every team stinks. But yeah, he's third on the team in points right now. And he's playing on the first line because I figured guys like McMenamin, who's supposed to have these big years, were going to be ahead of him. And same with
leads the team in assists too.
Right. Yeah. Yes. But yeah, I would say he's my biggest surprise. And also Jimmy Dowd. I love Jimmy Dowd. He's a great puck moving defenseman. He leads all the freshmen in points right now. Yeah, those guys are, both of those, in my opinion, are probably the two biggest surprises for this team.
How about you, Doug?
I'll go with Paul DeNaples, the guy who we expected to be the number one defenseman, stepped in and, all right, he's no Cole Holtz, which I think we knew, but even so, he's relied on a lot. This should be a video so we saw what so everybody could see what Nick just did.
I have been. There are a lot of podcasts that post their video on YouTube also. I think I might do that for this one.
All right. But Paul DeNaples has been relied on to be the guy, but as we said earlier, Penn State's defense as a whole has got a lot of issues. So to not even have that top pairing be relied on to at least not be bad, to be good at all, Penn State doesn't have a pairing, and that kind of starts with DeNaples. So he's a player who's regressed, and a lot of it has to do with not playing with Cole Holtz anymore.
Yeah.
But Penn State is a very sorry defensive team, and their number one defenseman would maybe be like a number 4 at best on most other Big Ten teams. So that's surprising in a bad way.
Yeah, I agree with that. DeNaples is my choice for surprisingly disappointing. Also, I mean, plus minus is far from a perfect statistic, but it's not great to see the guy who's supposed to be your top defenseman sitting at a -6.
And I also haven't really liked the performances of Evan Bell either. His decisions with the puck have not been very good. He's had a couple of bad turnovers. He's being careless with it at the blue line. So that's my biggest down player for sure.
That's, again, 100% on Godowski for not playing Bell and Snell together. That's on him. They should always be on the ice at the same time. I think Jacob, you mentioned Jimmy Dowd Jr., who I was going to talk about next year for the best freshman so far this season. I think it's easily Jimmy Dowd.
And you were so sold on Westcott.
I still think Westcott has a really good chance to be the best freshman of this class eventually. Yeah. I'd be interested. I mean, not that we'll ever know, but I'm sure the injury is probably still, it derailed him at a pretty significant point in time, I would say. Maybe we'll see him get back to the level he was at before, but I do still really like Jared Westcott. But yeah, I think it has to be Jimmy Dowd. Christian Sarlo, I think, has been pretty good. Also, he's been playing a lot with Limoges and Doherty, which is fun. It's a good thing to have a freshman playing on that line. But Doug, how about you? Who do you think's been the best freshman to this point?
It's definitely one of those two guys. Dowd and Sarlo have been playing a lot of minutes and playing, fine. I'm surprised that some of the freshmen who started the year playing well, or at least who were, other freshmen who were very highly regarded coming into the year, haven't been playing their best. Xander Lampa is one who comes to mind. I had really high hopes for him when he committed to Penn State and at the start of the season. But he's obviously a guy who's going to need another year or two to become a very productive college hockey player. And I still think he has a high ceiling. But yeah, it's definitely Dowd or Sarlo. I think probably Dowd, to have at least another somewhat competent defenseman back there is a big deal. I think he has a more important role to the team than Christian Sarlo.
We need Xander Lampa to go on to bigger things in his career, if for no other reason than every time he scores in Pagula, so they can play Exco and give it to you. Jacob, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, wait, are you talking about the?
Tell me a little more about Jimmy Dowd. Why you think he's been
best? I mean, like he's gonna be, when Phillips graduates this year, he's gonna be the next quarterback of the power play, which has been really good. It's top 10 in the country right now, and this kind of segues into your question that you were gonna ask us later about which stat is the best and worst, and the best obviously is the power play. They are, let me pull up my,
you're telling me that's your favorite stat and you don't even have the numbers?
No, hold on. Oh, I got it. They're 10 right now. They're 23.5. That's the 10th best in the country. So that's really good. And they've been good at the past few games too.
Yeah, it seems like it feels like a big percentage of their goals recently have been coming on the power play, which is great.
But yeah, Dowd is he's a great puck moving defenseman. I remember I asked Godowski about him one time, and he said he just gets it. You can't really teach those things. His high hockey IQ, the way he sees the ice, the way he can throw a long, I guess, stretch pass, and it's really quick. He could find guys really easily, and that's what this team needed out of Clayton Phillips, and he really hasn't done that.
So how about any other big individual takeaways?
I think Sternstein's been a little better than the really bad.
Oh yeah, Sternstein has been underwhelming. Like, he's supposed to be a top line guy scoring. He only has.
Jacob,
has 2 goals.
Do you know that you just cut Doug off to just diametrically disagree with what he was saying?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I said Sternstein's playing better. You said that's the worst take I've ever heard.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
he's by no means having a good season. But he was not good at all. I mean, very bad at the start of the season. Now he's creeping up to like almost half a point a game, and that's kind of the point I'm making. Not good, but he's not bad.
Yeah, and he's taking way too many penalties. I think he took like 3 penalties that one game against Notre Dame, or something like that. It was either Wisconsin or Notre Dame. I think it was Notre Dame.
It looks like he has 3 on the season. So I guess those are all.
I think those were all in one game. And that can't happen.
Yeah, it's not great. Sternstein also is tied for worst on the team in plus minus. Again, imperfect, but he and Christian Berger both sitting on -10. Not great. So moving on, let's go back to kind of the larger picture here and state of the team. Both at the beginning of the year and kind of when we reassessed after the first 8 games, we were all kind of feeling that like 5th, 6th was a pretty good prediction, a pretty good spot for what Penn State is and what they will be over the course of the season. Like I said before, right now they're sitting in 5th, but they're only 3 points out of being in 3rd. Do you still feel like they're going to settle in around that 5th, 6th spot in the conference? Or considering the kind of glut that's forming in the middle of the conference, do you think they could sneak up into that top 3? What do you think, Jacob?
No, I don't see them sneaking in the top 3 because of the 3 teams that are heating up. Minnesota, I don't think anyone's catching them. They have declined a bit, but so I don't think anyone's catching them. Wisconsin's on a hot streak. Michigan, back-to-back sweeps. I don't think anyone's catching them. It's either the most that Penn State can get really is 4th. So that's why, like, if you're a Penn State hockey fan, you should be rooting for Minnesota because no one's going to catch them, and they could play spoiler for other teams, and Penn State, I guess, can get a top 2 spot if Wisconsin, Michigan, Notre Dame, they all lose, which I don't think is going to happen. So, yeah, I still see them in 5th or 6th. I don't see them in last for sure.
I don't know if I've ever heard somebody refer to the number 1 overall team beating other teams as playing spoiler before.
Well,
interesting application of that term.
I mean, normally I would say that about Michigan State because they're so well-rounded defensively. But yeah, I don't. Minnesota can play, I guess, spoiler for the bottom tier teams because if the bottom tier teams keep winning, and the top ones keep losing to Minnesota, then
do you also
it just becomes a track meet.
Do you also think that the Yankees play spoiler to the Orioles in September?
Well, I'm not really a big baseball fan. I mean, I'm a Nationals fan, so I don't know.
Doug, what do you think?
Well, I think we got to watch out. We're recording this on Saturday or Friday, February 5th. I think we got to watch out for the Chiefs to play spoiler this coming Sunday to the Bucks.
Oh man, am I getting railed by my words?
I thought that was a fun turn of logic, and I like it. Nick, what was your question?
I won't tweet that.
Penn State is
I won't tweet that.
Do you think Penn State's going to continue to settle in around 5th, 6th in the conference, or do you think that they can still move up as the season goes on here?
No, I think fifth is right. I think Penn State, I mean, they obviously could get hot, but I don't really think they will, especially because the teams coming up are Ohio State, who, they'll probably split with or maybe sweep, but it won't make a difference because Penn State's ahead of Ohio State. Then they have to play Michigan, Minnesota, and Notre Dame again, which, they will lose most of those games, I expect. So I think Penn State's pretty much settled in at 5th, and we've seen a lot of their identity. They can beat Wisconsin. They have once out of 4 tries. They beat Michigan State 3 out of 4 times, and I think that's the idea. It's nice when if Penn State sweeps somebody, they probably won't, and they might get swept or they might be competitive against the better teams. And I realize I said nothing. That take means nothing. They can beat teams and lose to others. But yeah, fifth is about right. They're going to win some of their games and lose the ones they don't win. I'm sorry.
Do we have I don't believe we do. Have we heard anything about when the Michigan series might be rescheduled for yet?
Not that I know.
No.
There is pretty limited time. Yeah, I mean, your only option is right now the regular season finale is set for March 6th, and the Big Ten tournament's set to start March 18th. I imagine that gap was probably put in place for this exact purpose. But I am curious. If it's rescheduled after Notre Dame. I think that kind of changes the equation for me, because as long as things kind of continue to play out the way they are, I think Penn State could sneak into that 4 spot if that last series is against Notre Dame, who is presumably the team that will be right ahead of them. But if they have to play Michigan at the end, I'm a little worried about that, because at that point, I think Michigan's going to be rolling pretty good with that really talented freshman class. Overall, I agree. I think 5th is a good sweet spot for what they are. And that would put them playing the 4 seed in the first round of the Big Ten tournament anyway. So at that point, it really doesn't matter, since the games are, I believe, all going to be, are all of those
all at Notre Dame?
They all say Notre Dame. Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, there won't be fans, so not that matters, but that's an interesting point. So I just want to take a brief look before we get into our fun favorite stats, just a brief look ahead. And Doug, you kind of started touching on a little bit, and Jacob, you mentioned the teams they have coming up as well. Next 4 series: Ohio State, Arizona State, Minnesota, Notre Dame. The first 3 of those all at home, Notre Dame on the road. Are we thinking that it's just going to be splits the rest of the way, with the exception of a probable sweep playing Minnesota? We'll start with you, Jacob.
Yeah, that's reasonable. I think they can. You said they played Arizona State. They play Arizona State coming up.
They have yes. Ohio State, Arizona State, Minnesota, Notre Dame.
So that's a one series where I could see where Penn State sweeps. I don't see them splitting Minnesota. I think Minnesota comes in and sweeps them, but Minnesota they were swept by Notre Dame, which was a huge shock. And then Penn State versus Notre Dame, that could go either way, really. They can sweep them because both games have gone into overtime, and Penn State has really kind of, outplayed them at times. So, yeah, I think splits all the way, with maybe a sweep for Arizona State.
Doug, you basically already said this, but I assume you basically agree with that.
Yeah, pretty much. I think, Penn State will sweep Arizona State, get swept by Minnesota, toss up with Notre Dame, toss up with Ohio State. Ohio State's a team where I think Penn State is definitely better than, but Ohio State hockey always plays Penn State tough. So, who knows?
Yeah, I kind of see that in the way that Penn State's usually good for at least one win against Minnesota every year.
Right.
I think it kind of works to say, I wouldn't be surprised if they actually split all 4 of these series, maybe 5, considering what happens with the Michigan series whenever that ends up happening. It's just a hunch, but I don't see Penn State losing all 4 to Minnesota. I think they sneak 1 in there. Maybe it's an OT win or something, but I think they get 1. But yeah, that's where we're at with the hockey team. They've been playing a lot better. They still have some work to do if they want to position themselves more favorably for the Big Ten tournament. But overall, I think this team has either exactly performed the way we thought they were, or arguably been slightly better than we would have thought they'd been to this point. Do you guys agree with that?
Better than I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. The one thing, and I had to throw this out, that has been not great is a penalty kill. Penalty kill is, I believe, 39th in the country. And for a team that, and even though they take the 5th least penalties per game, which is 3 per game, still, that can't happen. And most of the penalties have been hooking, tripping, penalties where players don't move their feet. So that's one downside so far from this team. But other than that, things have gotten a lot better for them.
So let's move on to our favorite stats now. Jacob, you already shared yours. Doug, did you find a stat that is your favorite from this season?
I found 2. First, well, I found like 6, but first, Clayton Phillips, 25 penalty minutes. You need a guy like that. That's awesome. Everybody else, I'm just scrolling through the elite prospects here. You got 2 penalty minutes, 4, 2, 2, 2, 2, 25. Need a guy like that. Eat up all the time in the box. Go Clayton Phillips. I'm his biggest fan. My other favorite stat. Now, are you familiar with Club Trillion and everything in basketball? It's Club Trillion. So it's when a guy, you look at the stat sheet and it's like 1 0 0 0 0 0 0.
Okay.
1 game played and did nothing. So there's a couple of those on Penn State's roster, and I love it. So shout out to the overlooked guys: Kenny Johnson, Max Sov, and then the goalie William Holtforster. 1 game played, no goals, no assists, no points, no penalty minutes. Holtforster 0 goals against, 0 save percentage. So just 1 game played, and they're just skating around out there, just vibes.
Excellent.
Playing Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. So shout out those guys. I love that stat.
Excellent. My favorite stat is, all right, so first of all, I'll let you guys guess who's leading the team in shots right now.
Arnie.
No.
Wall.
It's Wall. Kevin Wall has 96 shots on the year. The next highest is Alex Limoges with 57.
Oh yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
I remember seeing that. Yeah, 'cause they actually tracked that.
Yeah, it is a hilarious discrepancy between first and second. Oh man, I love Kevin Wall. He is the quintessential Penn State hockey player.
Yeah.
It's James Harden.
Oh my god.
Wow.
All right. Well, I think we should get out of here. We're not going to do a specific preview of Ohio State right now. That game is not scheduled to take place until Friday, February 12th, so a whole week away. So we will do our best to get back here before then and do a little preview of that. But yeah, Penn State hockey, good place overall. I think we're all pretty pleased with what's happened. And there's definitely a path forward. We touched on the freshmen briefly about how they necessarily haven't taken the steps we would like, and perhaps that's a negative sign for what could be coming in the future, but we will break all that down at the end of the season when we have a full body of work to look at. So any final thoughts from either of you guys?
No, I mean, February 12th, I'll be on the way to State College because that's when I go back. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what this team can do down the stretch. I'm hopeful that they don't split each series because that's not what you want down the stretch. You want to be consistent. But we'll see how things play out.
Doug, any final thoughts?
So we're going to publish this in a couple days, but so this may not be news to everybody, but Matt Flip just put in our Slack, Will Levis to Kentucky.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
All right. Well, to get a breakdown on that.
Chiefs or Bucks? Chiefs or Bucks?
Chiefs. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm rooting for the Chiefs. I don't want Brady to win another one.
As long as I win at least 1 quarter for my squares that I'm in, I don't really care. Yep. But I'm feeling good because I got 7-7. I'm feeling good about that.
Nice.
This is a big pot too.
I got tails on the coin toss, over 159 on the national anthem, and red Gatorade at the end.
I will still never forget. I think was it last year? I think it was for the anthem, where I use Bovada for my betting because I live in Washington and I can't use DraftKings or FanDuel or any of those. And I forget what the time was, and I forget even who sang the anthem last year. It may have been a year prior anyway, but they technically they said that whoever was singing it said brave twice at the end, and they really held out the last one, but they counted the first brave as the end of the song, which ended like a second earlier than I needed to. And the whole night I was sitting there thinking, well, I won this bet. Why hasn't this come through yet? And then I saw that and I was just furious. So I will never bet on the anthem length again, just out of principle. I can't do it.
Yeah, I respect that, and I definitely understand. I got the Gatorade color 2 years in a row though,
Nice.
so I'm on a hot streak there.
Nice. I love things like the science of the Gatorade color, and things like if you guys know Bud Elliott, he does the scientific breakdown of when recruits announce where they're going based on hat location. I love stuff like that.
Yeah.
But we need to get out of here. To read fun stuff like that, to read about Will Levis to Kentucky, to read about the hockey team, make sure you visit RoarLionsRoar.com. Keep up with all our great coverage. Make sure you're following RLR blog on Twitter, on Instagram. We post a lot of updates there as well. If you want to support the site, please go ahead and visit our store on RoarLionsRoar.com, Storeline Store. You can buy some wonderfully comfortable sweatshirts, t-shirts, all that fun stuff. And make sure that if you like the podcast, you're subscribed. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review on Apple. That helps us get us into more ears who are interested in Penn State and Penn State hockey in general. But you can also find us on Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Overcast, iHeartRadio. Every single podcast that's out there, podcast services out there, you can find us. So for myself, Nick Pollock, for my co-host Jacob Charis and Doug Gleason, thanks for listening. Go State.